the minds of many, including many marketing agencies, the 90s are forever linked with the music they call grunge. But when you look back on the top videos each year throughout the decade, the list is incredibly diverse, with music ranging from rock, rap, R&B, country, Britpop, punk, and yes, power pop. Trying to get a group of enthusiasts to agree which bands are power pop and which are not has always been challenging, to say the least. In some ways, I think power pop is a bit like how Justice Potter Stewart once famously described obscenity. I know it when I see it. Power pop emerged in the 1970s as a reaction to prog rock and singer-songwriters. Bands like Raspberries, Badfinger, and Big Star took their love of the short, catchy songs about love and longing they grew up with and determined to bring that sound into the 1970s. Though Badfinger and Raspberries found a modicum of success in the early 70s, most bands struggled. Artists like Dwight Twilley Band and Artful Dodger rounded out this first wave of power pop artists, but despite enthusiastic fans and incredible catalogs, they never caught on in a widespread way. Toward the end of the 70s, new bands started to emerge that infused power pop with post-punk aggression that hit the sweet spot for modern audiences that longed for upbeat melodic music. Record labels rushed to sign every band with tight pants and skinny ties, and for a time it seemed that power pop had taken its proper place in the public consciousness. The Knack is often unfairly labeled as the band that killed power pop. In truth, however, they were a great band, one of the most successful power pop artists of the late 70s. Their debut album, Get the Knack, produced an inescapable hit single, My Sharona, that shot to number 1 in 1979. However, the band also faced a strong backlash from critics and fans who accused them of being Beatles ripoffs, sexist, and overhyped. As a result, before the ink could dry and the deals signed in haste, many bands were dropped before they could really take off. Record companies felt discouraged from signing and promoting power pop bands and made the genre less appealing and credible to mainstream audiences. Though there were stellar artists that emerged during this time, power pop became a marginalized and underground genre with only a few bands managing to really thrive. At the dawn of the 90s, some bands started to poke their heads out and test the waters on college radio. Bands like Material Issue got airplay on MTV and developed devoted followings. For a time, grunge's popularity overshadowed and marginalized many power pop bands.
You know, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and all that. That obliterated what I did. It just obliterated it.
But ironically, it also opened the doors for alternative bands, including many considered to be power pop. They blended power pop with alternative rock, grunge, and other influences, creating a distinctive and appealing sound that resonated with a wider audience. They also proved that power pop was still a viable and relevant genre that could offer catchy melodies, crunchy guitars, and 60s influences without compromising its authenticity and originality. Let's take a look at some of my favorite power pop bands of the 90s revival. This is by no means an exhaustive list, it's just some bands that I love and feel represent some amazing music of this period. All right, let's get to it.
Well, we're waiting.
Red Kross started in LA as a punk band with their first gig opening for Black Flag, though they morphed into a perfect blend of their influences. They covered bands like The Quick and Kiss, had a weird obsession with Linda Blair, and became one of the more energetic and entertaining power pop bands of the era. Fountains of Wayne was a New York band that released 2 great albums in the 90s, their self-titled debut in 1996 and Utopia Parkway in 1999. But they found power pop immortality with their 2003 release, Welcome Interstate Managers. The video for Stacy's Mom went into heavy rotation and the song was nominated for a Grammy Award. Weezer mixed power pop with alternative rock, pop punk, and geek rock, creating a quirky and catchy sound that appealed to a wide audience. Their debut album, Weezer, also known as the Blue Album, was released in 1994 and was a huge hit thanks to its catchy hooks, witty lyrics, and iconic music videos. They followed up with albums like Pinkerton, Weezer, also known as the Green Album, and Maladroit, which cemented their status as one of the most influential and successful power pop bands of the 90s and beyond. Being from Seattle, the band The Posies holds a dear place in my heart. In a sea of heavier bands, The Posies were a revelation for those of us longing for smart and sweetly crafted pop music, and their shows were always a great place to be. The Posies released their album Failure in 1988 on Seattle's Pop Llama Records, then their classic major label debut Dear 23 in 1990. But it was their 1993 album Frosting on the Beater and hits like Dream All Day and Solar Sister that put them on the map for the MTV generation. Sloan is a band out of Toronto that released their first recordings in 1992 and have been releasing great album after great album with the same lineup ever since. Their second album, Twice Removed, was a departure from the more grunge sound of their first album, but classics such as Pen Pals and Coax Me staked their claim in this landscape and gave their fans something to be excited about for the next 30 years and counting. Rhode Island's Velvet Crush released their first album in the presence of greatness in 1991 and their much heralded Teenage Symphonies to God in 1994. At the time, AllMusic wrote that Velvet Crush manages to inject a real enthusiasm and freshness in the standard 3-minute pop song. The band has backed various artists over the years, including Rick Megg lending his considerable drumming talent to the iconic band Shoes. Teenage Fanclub, a Scottish band that formed in 1989, blended power pop with indie rock, grunge, and jangle pop, creating a distinctive sound that was both retro and modern. Their breakthrough album, Bandwagon-esque, released in 1991, was praised by critics and fans alike, and even beat Nirvana's Nevermind in Spin Magazine's Album of the Year poll. With their release in 2023 of their latest album, Nothing Lasts Forever, Teenage Fanclub shows that time hasn't diminished their sparkle, and their harmonies still hit home. Unfortunately, this period was not without its casualties. Material Issue out of Chicago released International Pop Overthrow in 1991 and Destination Universe in 1992, both produced by Jeff Murphy of the legendary band Shoes. IPO was released shortly before Nirvana's Nevermind, and Material Issue struggled to break through after. They released one more album, the excellent Freak City soundtrack in 1994 that saw sales of only 50,000 copies. Though they recorded additional material that was ultimately released in 1997, frontman Jim Ellison took his own life in 1996. Matthew Sweet is an American singer-songwriter who started his career in the 80s but achieved his greatest success in the 90s. He combined power pop with alternative rock, folk rock, and psychedelia, creating a rich and diverse musical palette. His breakthrough album, Girlfriend, released in 1991, was hailed by critics and fans as a power pop masterpiece. But perhaps his greatest achievement was his stint in Ming T, backing the legendary Austin Powers. And finally, the band Jellyfish, formed in 1989 in San Francisco, the brainchild of primary songwriters Andy Sturmer and Roger Manning. They released two massively influential studio albums, Belly Button in 1990 and Spilt Milk in 1993. As with most bands that didn't fit the prevailing mold, Jellyfish swam against the current of both hair metal and grunge, leaving their indelible mark full of lush harmonies, deceptively simple arrangements, and startlingly original songwriting. So what are your favorite power pop bands of the 90s? What other power pop topics would you like me to cover in the future? Comment below and let me know. This is Bijan from Pop Rocks Radio. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.